Today on Locked On Red Wings, which forwards should Detroit re-sign and who should they let walk?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News radio podcast. Well, Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download Gametime, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And today's episode, guys, we're going to be shifting into, it's kind of a preamble to a free agency primer, which I'm sure we'll get to closer to free agency, which opens up in July. We're going to talk about the players on the Red Wings who are pending free agents as of right now. And this first episode we're going to do in this little mini series, it should only be 3 episodes or so, is going to be about the forward free agents, including RFAs and UFAs, restricted and unrestricted free agents. And there's 5 that the Red Wings have. I mean, there's more than 5 if you go into their depth system, but we're not going to talk about like Jason Weatherby and Chase Pearson. We're going to talk about guys who finished the year on the NHL roster who contracts are up. And I guess there's one main guy. I think there's 2 real who we're going to spend the bulk of the episode talking about, but one real main guy that we're going to talk about probably the majority of this episode. And Scotty, that's Pius Suter. Pius Suter signed a 2-year contract now 2 off seasons ago, worth $3.25 million a year. He is now a UFA. He had a great first season with the Detroit Red Wings where he had 36 points in 82 games played, playing as your second line center, when all reality he's he isn't a top 6 forward. This year he got pushed down in the lineup because you signed Andrew Kopp. He had 24 points in 79 games played, which is a lot probably closer in line with what his career production is going to look like. Started the year slow, finished hot, but was a defensively sound forward all the way through. Scotty.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is the defense and the consistency that he put out there defensively. We at the halfway mark of the season, did our player grades on it's the All-Star break or whatever. And Pius Suter did not grade out particularly well. And then as the season went along, he had a really solid second half and was really sound and consistent defensively. He's never going to give you consistent point production. That's never going to be the type of player that he is. You're not going to be able to, and you shouldn't be relying on like Pius Suter points to win hockey games on a consistent basis. But he, I think, proved that he can be a really, really solid bottom 6 defensive-minded forward that will go on some heaters and give you some production at some points. And we started this conversation about like extending him, I want to say in like March.
Yeah, when he got on that heater production-wise, and it's just like, wow.
Yeah, we started bringing up like this might go from a, poorly graded, first half and you don't want to get too high with the highs and too lows with the lows, but for a depth forward, what he can provide, I think is great because the defensive side of the puck is the consistency. The offense is going to come and go, but he's a bottom 6 forward. Who cares? You shouldn't be hanging out on production from your 4th line if you're a good hockey team. Like that shouldn't be the reason you're winning and losing games on a consistent basis. So I think I think he's a great candidate to bring back. And as far as, if we are going through all these guys with the mindset of like, oh, do we want to keep them or do we want to let them walk? I think I'm pretty comfortably at this point in the camp of re-signing Pius Suter, which again, 8 months ago, I don't think I would have been in the same mindset, but really, really impressive season.
Yeah, I am firmly in the camp re-sign Pius Suter. And, we mentioned about how we started talking about re-signing him back when he was kind of going on a little bit of a heater here, but you're not signing Pius Suter for the production, right? We're both aware of that. You're re-signing Pius Suter because on the bottom six, he is going to give you a defensively sound performance. He's going to go out there. He's going to keep the other team from scoring, and he's going to gel with some of those young guys. And he himself is very young. He's only 26 years old. He's going to be a great mentor for them on those lower lines if you decide to put them there. I mean, some guys you want to put higher immediately, like a Marco Casper. But he's also going to be your penalty kill savant. And this team desperately needs, and we saw it, the team's penalty kill took a huge leap forward where they went from worst in the league to like 18th, which isn't still super good, but a huge step forward for them. And he was a big part of that. And he's like what you would define, kind of like how Philip Zadina is like your analytics darling for offense. Like everyone always says the puck should be going in more than it is for him. Pius Suter is that defensively. I mean, you look at all the advanced analytics. Pius Suter is a game and a half, or not a game and a half, a point. He's 1.61 relative at expected goals for percentage. So when he is on the ice, he produces 1.61 quality shot attempts for rather than against. Like that's the ratio when compared to when he's off the ice. So he's a positive impact on the ice at creating and generating shots for. And that has less to do with the shots for and then it does the shot suppression, because him out there helps take away scoring attempts for other opponents. So his shot attempts against when he's out there is just so vastly low. He was second on the team, and this blew me away, Scotty. He was second on the team in expected goals above replacement this year.
Yeah.
And that's in 79 games played. There's only 3 players who played more games than him so far in this season. And that was Dylan Larkin at 80. You had David Perron at 82. You had Moritz Seider at 82. And you know what, Joe Veleno and Kubalik, for what it's worth, both had 81. So there's a few more players that had more than him, but at 79 games played, like that, those couple of games weren't going to change the fact that he had 13.1 expected goals above replacement. He just was such a defensively sound player that I have absolutely no qualms. In fact, I am advocating for at this point bringing back Pius Suter, because this team, especially because it fits perfectly with the type of system they're trying to implement in Detroit. Derek Lalonde wants a defense-first system. Pius Suter is that defense-first player. Now, there is something to be said about the fact that, he's not going to score you goals, and you have to score goals to win games. Like, that is a bona fide fact, but you're also not signing him or re-signing him to, like, be that goal scorer. That's what Dylan Larkin's job is going to be. To an extent, that's what Casper's job is going to be. Although Casper's a bit of a playmaker, more so than a goal scorer, and he has that defensive side to him too. But you're not putting the goal scoring first and foremost on your top 6, or your bottom 6 rather. Your bottom 6's job is to be sound. You want depth scoring, and he does provide a bit of that. But this team needs penalty killers, and he is a great one. And at 5-on-5, he was only a -3 on this team at 5-on-5 this season, and that was because his first few months were pretty bad. We talked about it in the player grades. His last few months with the Detroit Red Wings, he was a plus player. Like, he just is such a, I almost lack the adjectives to properly describe the type of play he provides, because defensive forwards just don't get the type of acclaim they should. But he's just so, like, he's out there and the team is just safe when he's out there, because he just plays such a smart hockey game that focuses on taking away opportunities from his opponents, that therefore generates opponents for his teammates.
Yeah, if this team takes a big step forward, he's probably a 4th line player with the ability to, whatever injuries happen, can move up to the 3rd line. But you probably ideally want him as like a solidified 4th line type of guy.
That's where he should be.
Right. Yes, correct. But and when you're looking at what a team is going to accomplish throughout the season, a 4th line is not going to single-handedly win you too many hockey games, but it can lose you hockey games. And I think bringing Suter back will, again, not fully guarantee, but I think safe is a good adjective you use there. Like, he can not allow the other team's bottom 6 to just wreak havoc against your bottom 6 on a consistent basis, and then leave it to the hands to the top 6 of the Red Wings to go consistently win you games. And I think that's a good place to be. And again, that along with the biggest thing probably being just because of how good he is defensively, the special teams help that he can provide for you as well is very valuable. I think that there is a very not only a very real argument to bring him back. I think it just flat out makes sense.
And good defense produces good offense ultimately.
Yeah.
If he's going to be taking pucks away from opponents, suppressing shots, that's going to eventually lead to shot attempts for in the offensive zone, which again is why he was 11th on the team in expected goals for percentage overall. And he was 1.61 expected goals for percent relative, meaning, again, that basically means, without getting into the nitty gritty of breaking down of what that means, it basically means he was a positive impact on the ice compared to when he was off the ice. The team was better with him on the ice than when he was off the ice. And just, again, second best player on the team at expected goals above replacement. That's how good Pius Suter was in the bottom six. And I'm fully on board with bringing him back. In segment 2, we're going to talk about, which we're a little over, we're going to talk about what kind of contract he could command. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Athletic Greens. This next partner is a product you got to use literally every day. Start taking AG1 because with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all those things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. Contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. And it supports better sleep quality and recovery, supports mental clarity and alertness. It's the one thing with the best things. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different supplements and pills to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. We're talking about Pius Suter and the other pending free agent forwards on the Detroit Red Wings, and we're both in agreement that we want Pius Suter back. But, Scotty, it's going to come at a cost, and I'm sure Pius Suter, and his agent, like any good free agent, is going to be asking for an upgrade. The problem is he's already making $3.25 million, and you don't want to give a guy whose ceiling is bottom 6 defensive forward a ton of money, or really a long-term contract, which let's be honest, and deservedly, like this is what athletes do, might be asking for a little bit longer term. What kind of contract could you see Pius Suter get?
I thought there was going to be something else there.
With the Red Wings. There you go.
Right, yeah, there you go. I feel like another 2-year deal is kind of just like the sweet spot for everybody. Like you give him a little bit more security than just like a 1-year deal. It's not like he's like 35 or anything. Like he's plenty young enough to be able to give him that and feel fine about it. The AAV really is the question, because I don't think anyone would be too upset with giving Suter 2 or even a 3-year deal if it was a low enough salary. I don't think it's tough. It's really tough because, like you said, like obviously the most people are looking to get more money and get a bump in pay when they go from one salary to the next, especially if they're re-signing with their same team. But I don't know how much optically everybody would really be looking forward to playing, as you stated, a bottom 6 forward like $4 million a year over the next 2 or 3 years or whatever. I think that's a really tough sell. So if you are to bring him back, I think it would probably have to be a similar salary and honestly a relatively similar term. Like I'm kind of just looking, best case scenario for me, I'm fine with just kind of close to copy and pasting what the previous deal was. And based on what he did before he got here, as far as point production goes, I think and the point production was not as much as it was. What was his first year in Chicago, or second year was the crazy year he had as far as goal scoring. Like,
but you got to remember who he was playing with on those lines too in Chicago. He's playing with
for sure. But I'm
superstars.
just saying it's a lot easier to point to point totals and be like, hey, look, this is what like his point total was like in one of these years. Let's try to like base somewhat the salary based off that versus like, hey, there wasn't really too much point production, but he gives you good defensive value, but that's hard to quantify a lot of times. Like, I think that there is an argument for kind of having a similar contract just repeated.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. And if Pius Suter's smart, he'll be trying to get more. But if you try to compare this contract with other players around the league, I mean, Pius Suter's a unicorn in the fact that he's making $3.25 million. A lot of other players are on comparable contracts are making like half that. The biggest comparable according to Cap Friendly is Derek Ryan, who's 31 years old, and he scored 61 points this year. So it's like not even the same play style. Every other player who's on a similar contract is making like $1.5 million because Pius Suter was signed after coming off of a Calder finalist year by the Detroit Red Wings. And, he was brought in on a Band-Aid contract. Like that's the type of year offseason it was for the Detroit Red Wings. We just needed to fill bodies. And Yzerman was taking a flyer. You're not signing Pius Suter to score, 36 points like he did his second year, or 27 points in 55 games he did his first year. You're signing Pius Suter to be that defensively sound guy, and those guys don't go for a lot in the free agent market. But Pius Suter is probably going to justifiably, because careers are short-lived, looking for a upgrade, a promotion. What's the word? A raise. That's the word. Forgot the word raise there for a second. I wouldn't be comfortable going any more in terms of per year, like north of 3.5. He's making 3.25.
No, I completely agree. As much as I would love to see him back, that's too much for what the role he would be on this team.
Yeah. And so, granted, the Red Wings have a ton of cap space, but doesn't mean you can just spend it willy-nilly because it'll disappear. It'll evaporate in a heartbeat.
Well, especially they got some extensions that they're trying to figure out coming up.
And so you got I would do 3 years max, 3.5. I don't know if that's enough to get it done. Just because I know Pius Suter is going to be looking for a raise. I know his agent's going to be looking to get him a raise because his agent's going to get a cut of that. So while we want Pius Suter back, I don't know if the Red Wings are going to be able to offer him what he's going to want, simply because he's already making 3.25, and I don't know if he's worth, unless he realizes the situation and maybe the market isn't there for him, which it could very well not be there for him. And then that's the case. Maybe you do get him on a little bit of a pay decrease. Maybe you get him down at like 2.5 across 3 years. That'd be phenomenal. But I could also just maybe not be understanding the value of defensive forwards, because again, I don't try to claim that I'm some kind of hockey savant. So maybe I'm completely misjudging his worth. But it seems to me, sitting right here, as much as I love Pius Suter and what he's brought the last 2 years, I can't see a guy who's never scored more than 40 points getting north of like $3.5 million at a huge limit. Let me look, see what else other players in the Red Wings are making who had like similar production, right? You have David Perron's making 4.75. That's nearly 60 points. Fabry's making $4 million a year. He, 30 plus point score, 40 plus point score. I mean, Pius Suter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pius Suter makes the 5th most amount of money on your team. He makes more money than Dominik Kubalik, who's like a pure goal scorer. Literally the definition of pure goal scorer. Doesn't really do much else.
Right, yeah.
And maybe that's why Dominik Kubalik makes less money, because Pius Suter is more dynamic while not producing as much on the score sheet. So it's one of those weird situations where maybe I'm misjudging. Maybe he's worth more. I don't know. It's hard to get a tough read, but I would be uncomfortable signing him to more than 3.5 million across like 2, maybe 3 years, because I don't want that to be, and it wouldn't, at that cap hit, it wouldn't be an albatross by any stretch of the imagination down the line at all. But just with what this team's trying to do, as much as I want to bring him back, it has to be for the right price, because you cannot overspend. I don't want to go back to the Ken Holland era where you're overspending on guys you like because you like them. Not that I think guys are going to do that.
It definitely has to be for the right price. It's not a bring him back under, any means necessary type of thing. And I do, the Chicago year held a lot of weight, and that's obviously, and that's why I think that the deal he got looked the way it did. Like if you were to prorate what he did, because that was only 55 games, if you were to prorate that to an 82 game season, you're talking about like a like a legitimate point total, like a pretty legitimate. Again, like got Calder votes, was only 24 years old, had a really legitimate point total, and like in the 40s it would have been. So I think that's holding a lot of weight there, but you don't see too terribly often a lot of players at this age, when there is a market for them, take like massive cuts in pay. That's like not super common.
The question is there a market for him? And that's what we don't know.
Yeah.
Because the market will determine the value. And that's what it simply comes down to.
Smart man said that once.
His name was probably Scotty. You've definitely said that more than one occasion. But the point being here, to end the conversation on Suter, because we have 4 other players we still got to get to in the final segment. We want him back, but it has to be at the right price.
Yep, for sure.
So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Adam Erne and the other 4 players, because the other guys will be quick conversations. So, but first, I got to talk to you guys today about the Gametime app. There it is. Gametime is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag those tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, let's talk about Adam Erne here. We're running up against it already. Things are getting slim. But Adam Erne, UFA with the Detroit Red Wings. Man, it's hard to believe that this was his 4th season with the Detroit Red Wings. Seems like just yesterday they got him, off of waivers? No, they traded for him from the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was one of those guys that Steve Yzerman thought wasn't getting enough time in the sun down there in Tampa Bay. Ironic considering it's Tampa Bay. Decided to give him a little bit of an opportunity on a team that has a weak roster to make a name for himself, prove that he's an NHL caliber player. Signed to a 2-year contract extension in 2021 offseason, and that is now up here in 2023, $2.1 million. He spent a good chunk of this season in the AHL, but still finished the year, Scotty, second in hits. Second in hits. I believe his total hit count was 160 hits in 61 games played, second only to Moritz Seider, who had 207 in 82. Adam Erne, UFA, do you bring him back?
No. And like I that's the dog. Like that is the dog. But I don't think so. What did he make this year?
$2.1 million. Not a lot. Definitely did not break the bank.
Not a lot. So yeah, you're probably looking at somewhere around there again. I don't know. I feel like when you are talking about all of the additions we want this team to make this offseason, if you're going through the roster and you are circling which players on the current roster would be candidates to be on the chopping block to be replaced by said influx of talent, hopefully, I think Erne would probably be towards the top of said list. Maybe not by game 82 because they had, with between injuries and whatnot, that they had some like fringe NHL guys there at the bottom of the lineups. But I think Erne brings something that this team needs, but Adam Erne, we said it before. Like, it's great that Adam Erne is like the hitter on this team. That's great, but like Adam Erne shouldn't be your most physical player. That's a non-physical hockey team. So I love him. That's the dog forever. I'll be rooting for him for whatever happens next. But the only way I can see him coming back is if it was like, honestly, like a two-way deal type of situation. And he was like organizational depth. He was okay playing in the AHL maybe when the team's fully healthy. And then if someone gets hurt, Adam Erne can come up and fill that.
That's exactly it. Like, his production was easily replicated and, in fact, improved on by Alex Chiasson, who we'll get to in a couple of minutes. The biggest benefit he brought was actually a huge need for the Detroit Red Wings in the fact that they didn't have any grit on the team. But the problem becomes, and I don't want to slander your boy, but this is the same problem that I had with Giovanni Smith. You know, when grit becomes the only thing you can provide, but you can't really provide anything else to the team offensively, defensively, and your main thing is to hit bodies and take penalties, it becomes almost a detriment rather than a benefit. And I think Adam Erne, God bless him, I loved what he brought. I'll always remember his 8-game heater where he went on like 8 goals in 8 games or something like that in 2021. But
never forget the Adam Erne games too.
I think this team's in desperate need of an upgrade, and I think they can upgrade that position, that player, while also maintaining that grit. Get a guy who's just as gritty, who'll hit it just as much, but also provide a little bit more of an NHL caliber skill. I think Adam Erne is going to get himself a contract somewhere in the league, whether it's two-way or one-way. Remains to be seen. Obviously, we're not at free agency yet, but I don't think it's with the Red Wings, with a team that's looking to upgrade multiple positions, especially on forward. That's going to have a lot of competition coming up here soon with a lot of guys pushing to make the NHL roster that the Red Wings have drafted. I don't think there's a fit for Adam Erne at the NHL level, with the Red Wings at least. So I think you got to let him walk. The next guy, Joe Veleno, final year of an entry-level contract. I was hoping for a big step forward out of Joe Veleno. He did set a new career high in points, although the caveat to that is he played 15 more games than he did last year. He played 81 of 82 games with the Red Wings this year. He was a healthy scratch in one game early in the season, if I'm recalling correctly. He had 9 goals, 11 assists, 20 points, minus 12. Bottom 6 minutes, bottom 6 forward until down the stretch where injuries happening. He made a couple appearances in the top 6. I mean, he's an RFA. He's not even eligible for arbitration yet. So this isn't easy. Like, yeah, no duh, you're going to re-sign him. So the conversation more was about like what kind of contract is he going to get, and what has our expectation of his role in the future changed at all?
Yeah, well, yeah. First off, he's obviously coming back, and he should come back, and that's all great. Yeah, I mean, I was pretty open throughout the entire season about how I didn't think Veleno took a very big step forward this year, and he's going to need to this upcoming season if he wants to kind of inject himself into the conversation of like, oh, you know, this is the group of players, not the core necessarily, but this is the extended group of players that we are going to carve a rollout for going into every single season and are part of our plans going forward. Again, not that he's going to get like left by the wayside like in his pre-arbitration years or anything. Like, he certainly won't, and he's still young enough where they're gonna bring him back and see what steps forward he can take. But yeah, this year was a little bit of a letdown, as we kind of already reiterated in the player grade conversation. So he'll come back. As far as his role on the team, though, I mean, if this team gets a lot better, I'm not even sure there's necessarily like a guaranteed spot for Joe Veleno on opening night. I'll go as far to say that.
Yeah, and it's like one of those guys where, I mean, Andrew Kopp went out of his way to say like, this guy has the potential to be, you know, a great center at the NHL level, but he didn't really I would argue he didn't take a step forward at all this season. And I know it was a sophomore season, so if we're going to give Raymond the excuse of sophomore slump, you know, we can give it to Joe Veleno as well. But, you know, Joe Veleno, I was just hoping to see a little bit more than we did. And maybe you could make an argument that he didn't necessarily get deployed in the best type of situation, but he also didn't show like enough to warrant more than that. Like, Jonathan Berggren came in and immediately like showed give me top 6 minutes to prove myself. And at times he played great. And other times he was like, okay, put him back down in the bottom 6 till he's ready. Joe Veleno never really showed I deserve more than bottom 6 minutes. And so while he'll definitely come back, I think it's going to be 2-3 year, bridge deal, $1.5 million, something like what Michael Rasmussen's currently on, I would argue, which is, I think, 1.5, something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to come back. He's an RFA, much like Matt Luff is an RFA. But I would make the argument that he might not come back. Because again, you got to remember, we signed Matt Luff. The Red Wings signed Matt Luff. Yeah. He's already been, even though he's an arbitration-eligible RFA, this is his 3rd NHL team. He played 33 games, 18 games, 13 games, 23 games. He's always been up and down at the AHL level. He's another guy who's, got that dog in him, right? And the dog essentially means anyone who's like a borderline NHL player. He was signed to a 2-way contract, Scotty. So I don't mind. The Red Wings need, he's one of those guys I wouldn't actually mind re-signing just because of the fact that this team needs depth. But again, it would have to be on another 2-way contract. That's
I agree. Two-way or no is probably what I would do for him. Yeah.
Like this, because let's be honest, it was imperative that this team have guys down the stretch. We saw, obvious it was, that they need guys like Matt Luff in the AHL who can come up and play NHL minutes. He made $750,000 at the NHL level, $350,000 at the minor league level. Matt Luff is like every other player of that caliber. He is an easily replaceable player, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt to have that guy in the minors who can just be on a 2-way contract, moving up and down when you need him. Granted, again, there's a little bit of a misconception because NHL video games make it seem like they don't have to go through waivers, but they do still have to go through waivers if you call them up. It's just they make different amounts of money depending on what level they're at. That's what a 2-way contract is. I don't have a problem bringing back him. I don't have a problem with bringing back Alex Chiasson, who is the final forward who is eligible. Now, he is a UFA. Both him and Luff, if you want to let him walk, I'm not going to be heartbroken. If you want to sign him again to another one of those depth contracts, put him in the AHL, perfectly acceptable. It's not going to make or break the team either way.
Yep, I agree. I wouldn't mind Chiasson back on a depth signing whatsoever. But neither of those guys should you be going into opening night with guaranteed roster spots in the NHL level.
Absolutely. I mean, he's been with, oh my Lord, I didn't realize how many organizations he's already been with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, I had to count with my fingers. Just kidding. He's only 32, and this is his 8th NHL team already. That's crazy. I didn't realize that. Longest stint was 3 years with the Edmonton Oilers. But yeah, I mean, reiterate, Chiasson, Luff, bring them back as organizational depth, perfectly okay, but don't sign them to NHL contracts expecting them to be on the NHL roster.
Agreed.
I mean, so in the end, the only 2 players we're hardcore bring back is Pius Suter and Veleno because he's an RFA and he's super young still.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Time to go upgrade this offseason, boys.
Yes, forward is a big upgrade part of this team. Yes.
Scotty, any final thoughts?
I apologize for my allergies.
I didn't even notice.
Oh, dude. It's so bad. It's always really bad for 2 or 3 weeks in May, and then usually the rest of the summer I'm pretty good. But I'm in the thick of it right now. It's not great. Yeah, we ball.
Yep, we do ball. And then, guys, let us know which of these players you would re-sign, if any. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who say don't re-sign any of them, and I can't necessarily disagree because this team needs a lot of
that's
upgrading.
The thing. That's 100% the thing. If somebody said I don't have a dire need to bring back anybody we mentioned on the show, that's not a hot take whatsoever. I really don't mind that at all. That's totally fair. And I don't think deserves any heat. So
here's another thing too. And I don't want to ruin our conversation, retroactively. But a big thing to consider is if the Red Wings wanted to bring a lot of these guys back, they already would have, barring your RFAs, because there's a window for negotiating with those guys. But if the Red Wings wanted to re-sign Pius Suter or they wanted to re-sign Adam Erne, they would have done so already. like they did with Oli Mata. They did with Jake Wallman. They got it done.
Agreed.
But I want Pius Suter back. So
Agreed.
Bring me Suter back, damn it. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow talking about the defensemen, because there's 3 defensemen whose contracts are up right now with the Detroit Red Wings. So we'll talk about those guys. So stay tuned. Same time, same place. You're a team every day.
Every day.